Namaskar and welcome to another episode of Ananda Marga Dharmacast. And this is a podcast series looking at issues and topics in spirituality using the teachings of Shrii Shrii Anandamurti, the founder of Ananda Marga. We're using those teachings as a starting point. And I'm your host, Dada Vedaprajinananda. So today, we're going to look at something which is it's a very important topic. It's called, and I don't want to scare you, it has Sanskrit, Swadharma and Paradharma. But I'll explain that. And it comes, this discussion which we're going to talk about is from the Bhagavad Giita. And it's one of the parts of the Bhagavad Giita which is widely misunderstood. So it's very important that we understand what it is. So I'll begin reading with from the text of Shrii Shrii Anandamurti, and then we'll discuss it. So he starts off, he says, you should bear in mind that Shri Krishna said something very valuable about devotees or spiritual aspirants and those who dearly love God. And that is what I will discuss today. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna said, Shreyam Swadharma Viguna Paradharmat Swastunastitat Swadharme Nidanam Shreya Paradharma Bhayavaha. And the meaning of that is, it is better to follow one's own human dharma, even if it lacks in some qualities, than to follow the dharma of other beings. It is better to die as a human being than to live as an animal. So Swadharma, is human's own dharma, is the most precious of all objects. Even if the adoption of Paradharma, the dharma of others, brings pleasure, even if it is simple and easy to follow, even then human beings should stick firmly to their own Swadharma. A question may, however, be raised here. What exactly is the nature of this Swadharma? Every object has its own properties, own specific attributes. Oxygen, for instance, has its own property, own specific attribute. Nitrogen has its own property. These distinctive property, in fact, is what distinguishes one object from another. I'm going to skip ahead here. In the same way, humans have their own Swadharma. And it's because of this Swadharma that they are different from other living beings. So just as oxygen has its own Swadharma, it's different from nitrogen and hydrogen. Humans are basically animals, just as dogs and goats are, but the specific attribute that makes humans what they are, by virtue of which they are distinguished from other animals, is manava, or human dharma, their own dharma. And what is the real significance of their own dharma, their swadharma? It is the aspiration to realize Parama Purusha, which is God. So I'll stop here, because this is really the crux of what this is about, and I'll explain also why it is sometimes misunderstood. So what he's saying is that humans, Krishna starts off, he said you have to follow your own dharma, your own nature, and even if it's easier to follow something else, don't do that. Even if you have to die for your own intrinsic nature. Don't give up on that. So this is very important. So for instance, and he goes on to explain how animals are completely materialistic. So, that's what they live for. They live for this physical pleasures. And in a sense, it might be easier sometimes for us to go for that. We'll live by these physical means. We'll only care for our physical well-being and physical safety, but we neglect what it is to be a human. So we shouldn't do this ever, 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 ever. And why this is misunderstood, this idea of swadharma is it means your own dharma, and you shouldn't follow someone else's. So on a simplistic basis, in India, sometimes people think that dharma means the religion that you were born into. So it says that you better to follow your own religion than to follow another religion. So this is not what it's not talking about religion. It's talking about our human nature. And what is the human nature? We share, like he said, we share the qualities of animals. We eat, sleep, we fear, we procreate, things like this. But we also have something that separates us. We're not just, one time they once said that the human being is a naked ape. It's an ape which has lost some fur, but we're more than a naked ape. We're a human being, and the human being has this aspiration to realize God. So this is what we have to do. And sometimes it may be easier to forsake that. I won't think something higher. I won't do that. I'll eat, sleep, I'll be merry. And then this is not the way to go for humans. It's not a good idea. So this is really the crux of what is Swadharma, means the human dharma, the human nature. And Paradharma is really basically animal nature. So it's not a question of religions. And anyway, when it comes to God, finally there's no religion. The only religion is the human religion, to realize that we are spiritual beings, that we should do what we can to merge with God. And on the way there, we should take care of the other beings who inhabit this planet with us. This is really the essence. And he goes on, he says, furthermore, he says, Krishna said that even if adherence to Swadharma brings about pain and suffering, or even leads to one's death, one should remain firm in one's own Swadharma. If death comes while following Swadharma, let it come, but I will never deviate from the human ideal, from Manavadharma. So this is the idea, and that's what the sentence, what I read before, Swadharme nidaram shreya paradharmo bhavayava. It is better to die as a human being than to live as an animal. So this is what it is all about, and we have to remember that always. And another thing which is also mentioned in this text, Krishna also told the people at that time, he said, when Dharma declines and the speed of progress becomes slowed, Parama Purusha, God, descends, comes to the earth in the form of Taraka Brahma, or the liberator. So the society will go on even in the face of obstacles, because we face many obstacles today. You know that very well. We live in a world where it's hard, it's difficult to follow the human path, and the materialism is trying to engulf everything that we exist for. But we should fight against that materialism and continue with spirituality. And that's why also he said in the Gita, set aside all other dharmas and take shelter in me alone. So take shelter in God alone. This is really the main thing. So we should follow that. We should follow that thing. Take shelter in me alone. And then he said here, Anandamurti says, why did Krishna give this advice? The reason is simple. It is not possible to put one foot in one boat and the other foot in another boat to sail in that way. If you do that, you'll end up in the water and perish. So worship only the non-dual, the Parama Purusha, just God, one God. There's no other things. Even people may call it this, they may call it that, but there's only one. So just leave aside anything else and follow your human nature, which is also your spiritual nature. And everything will be great. So that is really the essence of it. And there's nothing more to add. We should follow our human nature And never, even if it's easier sometimes to be less than a human, don't do that. Be a human, and we will shine. So that's all I wanted to say about this important part of the teachings, the spiritual teachings. And if you want to read the original essay, it's called Swadharma and Paradharma Part 3, and it's been published in Discourses on Krishna and Gita, which is a compilation of Shrii Shrii Anandamurti's talks. So now about these original teachings, I want to explain something. They're available in books published by Ananda Marga, and you can get them. Sometimes you can get them at the Ananda Marga centers, but sometimes not, because some of them are sometimes out of print or not available. So that's why there's a resource which I'm reading from right now. It's called the electronic edition of the works of Shrii Shrii Anandamurti. And I recommend that if you really want to go into all the different kind of texts which I've been speaking from, then to get that electronic edition. And I will leave a link for it in the description below this podcast on YouTube and also on Dharmacast. And that brings me to another thing, that these podcast episodes are now on YouTube as in form of videos, and also as audio podcasts. You look for Ananda Marga Dharmacast, and they're available on all the podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and other places, and also at our dedicated website, dharmacast.com, dharmacast.com. So you can find the audio, and wherever you are, subscribe to the audio, and if you're on the YouTube, give it a thumbs up. The reason for that, the subscription, give positive ratings, all that, it helps other people to find this content, and that's also important. One other part of the spiritual path is to help to bring others to it. That's also part of our duty as a human being. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. We should follow our human dharma and not any other. And it has nothing to do with religion or some superficial thing like that. But it's the basic human dharma of to live properly as a human being and not as an animal. We have our human nature is to know about God, to find God, to expand our mind, reach that supreme consciousness, to merge, to find that anandam or bliss, nothing else. So that's all for today. If you have any questions or anything you want to add to this, let me know. I'll be happy to answer those questions and maybe take them up as a future episode of Ananda Marga Dharmacast. Until then, I say namaskar. It means I salute you with my mind and all the love and cordiality of my heart.